I'm Kathleen Wall, and I'm a visual artist. I've been a visual artist for many years now, half my life, I guess. I learned, that's a working artist for half my life. I've been an artist, I think, my whole life because my parents have been artists. And when you have parents that are artists, you kind of grow up just doing art naturally, you know. So my youngest documented pieces, I was about 12 years old. I started selling small novelty storytellers at 14. And so that put the bug in me, and I wanted to make more storytellers. And that's pretty much what I did. Throughout my teenage years, I made storytellers and sold them to different novelty shops around New Mexico. It just kind of grew from there. You know, by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was pretty much had evolved away from the storyteller I had been taught as a child to a storyteller figure like, but without the babies. And that gave me my signature piece of the Kashari, smiling Kashari figure that I'm primarily known for. I did that for a very long time. You know, I felt as though I had a wonderful piece of art that reflected my personality. It monetarily was very beneficial to me, and by now I was thinking about starting my family, and it's been essential to raising my family, my career. And so I'm very thankful to have a signature piece like that. My mother dug her clay and processed her clay, so that's what I grew up with. And that's something I absolutely love to do. It's a certain texture and a certain smell that just, it's like home, it brings you home. I love the clay that I was taught to make as a child. And so that's the clay I resonate towards all the time. Typically, most Pueblo potters have their favorite place to dig and dig their favorite clay. It's nothing different than even the ceramic store. Everybody has the clay they love and they go back to it over and over. This particular clay I dig from the south side of where I'm from, Jemez, Pueblo. And after we dig the clay, it's usually wet. And so we'll put it out to dry. And the reason I dry it out is because it melts faster with less, work. So after it's dried up, we'll smash it into smaller kernels, and then we'll put it into some warm water, and then it'll melt it, and then I'm able to sift it with a sieve. A lot of people don't realize how many steps there are to native clay. It's digging the clay, it's knowing where to dig the clay, giving thanks for the clay, knowing how to process it. Once the clay is dry, we'll put it in a bucket of water. So we'll let that melt. So once we have all the clay in the water, we'll let it sit for not too long. And then what I like to do is I like to get a larger sieve. And then what I'll do is I'll run this through, and it's so big that it just captures the organic material. You can see there's brings up a lot of organic matter. So then we have like a soupy, milky, like a super chocolatey milk here. This sieve is very, very big, maybe a 40-30, something like that. And what I do with this is I just go skim across the top, and I get all the organic matter that I can out. And the reason I do that is it just makes it easier in the long run to get this clay through a much finer sieve. So basically these are all the little twigs that are growing in the clay, all the little roots. And then once that's semi-clean, it just has a lot of the organic matter out. It makes it easier to go through this finer sieve here. So this is just the clay body, and I basically do the same thing with the volcanic ash, which I mix in as a temper. As I sift, you can see it's building up with organic matter and also sand. So we get the bigger pieces of sand out and the organic matter. 2 or 3 buckets later, hours later. When we get this done, or as much as we want done, what I do is I'll let it settle. I do something a little different than most potters. I mix clay that has been sifted dry. So once it's settled, what I do is I put in white sand. This is measured out. So this is about half and half. And it doesn't really look like it because this is so wet. It looks like it has more mass. But so what I do here is I mix these together. And people mix stuff together in different ways. I mean, it's just the way, I don't know, the way I do it. So this is the pumice that I sifted in Jemez quite a bit. Okay. So what I do here is I mix this up, and it still stays pretty milky. So this is the same clay that I just processed, the exact same clay. And so what I do is I still do half and half. I'll do half clay and half pumice. So what I do here is I mix this up. And this is typically what a lot of Pueblo potters do, is this process, and they add water, which is fine. You know, everybody does it differently. So I still do the same thing as other potters, but I don't use water. I use my clay that I sifted with the volcanic ash. So I just start mixing it, and you can see there's hardly any dust compared to if I put some water on there. I just love the way this smells. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. See, it's the same material. It's no different. It's just different processing. Okay, so when it's too big to work, because it's just ridiculous, cut it in half. I keep my clay in a cooler. And I have found over time that it keeps it moister and it keeps it warm. And that's the one thing I love, is warm clay. My father was an academic and part-time artist as I was growing up. My dad taught me a lot about work ethic, and my mother taught me this very free, artistic lifestyle. She worked on her own terms. She worked when she wanted to. She sold her pots when it was convenient for her. And my dad had a very different way of living. He went to work every day. So having both those contributions, I think it's the best of both, because I took in, of course, the artistic abilities, and I guess you could say making your life on your own terms, like from my mother. And then my father taught me a lot of work ethic, and I don't think I would survive or be as successful of an artist if I didn't have a work ethic embedded in me. So it's definitely the best of both, contributions to being an artist. So what I do is I build in coils, and I carve in coils. This is going to be a portrait of my son. So he's wearing his jeans and his tennies. Living in Jemez and having my family and my culture so tangible is a blessing, because I know what it's like not having it. I've been an urban Indian quite a few times, and and I've lived on the reservation quite a few times. I've been on the reservation for quite a while now, but it's definitely my choice to be there because I appreciate my family around me, and I appreciate the culture around me. It's just all so very beautiful to me. And I want my children to have those experiences. I want them to have the experiences of having such a close-knit family and always having a support of some sort, you know, in everything they do. The way I keep going, of course, is I put plastic on top. So as I build, the bottom is able to hold the weight of the top because the bottom is so dry. So I let everything sit just a little bit, and this is what allows me to build 4, 5, or 6 pieces at one time. And that's how I do my booth art. Basically, I work on something, let it sit, work on something else, let it sit, and then pull something else out. I can always work on something in my studio. There's never nothing to do. The project I'm working on here kind of introduced itself many years ago when I used to hang out with my grandpa. And I told him once that I wanted to take his image, take pictures with him at his Indian name. He was blind, and I didn't really know where I was going. So of course I didn't get exactly his name behind him. I was about 1.5 miles off. It's kind of funny when I look back at those images, thinking, wow, this is so neat that that's where the seed was first planted, way back when in my early 20s when I was taking images of him. So many times Native Americans have a name that, you know, describes or talks about a place where they're from. And I'm sculpting my son right now, and his name is Trees in a Row. And so when I ask him, what trees do you imagine when you think of your native name? And he tells me that he imagines the blue spruce trees when they're hunting. So, I mean, that's his connection. That's something he really treasures, is his time with his dad and when they go out hunting. Names have always inspired me. The more, you know, I'm aware of people's traditional names, they always have a connection to culture, to language, to a ritual, ceremony, or place. But it all takes you to that place. My grandfather's passed, but you know, he's been a subject matter of mine before, and I feel as though he explains this project to a T. So by having these pieces finished, I'll be able to talk to other cultures, and my big dream is to have it pertain to a great many indigenous people, and how our connection to place is very important, and it's in our culture, and it's in our blood, it's in our lineage, the place that we came from. So what I'm doing here is I'm referring back to a portrait of my son. So I'm trying to create him in this very casual setting where he's standing here with his skateboard. When I was 24 or 25, how old was I? 24 or 25, I'm not sure. I went back to Jemez to help take care of my grandfather. And he was a big part of my, I guess, career, because he was always so supportive. He was always so happy when we'd go to an art show, or, you know, the different accomplishments that I did. And as small as they were, he was always very supportive and very proud of me. I went back to Jemez to help take care of him, and I ended up staying there from then on. He had a house he built when he was a young man for his family, and it had fallen down. So at first it was just to lift his spirits. I thought, well, let's start rebuilding the house, because that would, you know, make him happy. So I started, you know, I just got some people together and my dad, and we rebuilt the one room that was still halfway standing. And then a couple years later, I continued and rebuilt the room that had fallen down and added on a bathroom anyways. And so just shortly after I built it, he started wanting to give it to me. What he had said is he just wanted me to always have some place to work, some place to do my art. Because he, like I said, he was a big supporter of my work my whole life. And so I started working there, of course. That was my studio, and I've created the majority of everything I've done, you know, since 24 years old to now in that studio. So it's dear to my heart. So when I started painting, or I began to paint a landscape, I usually look at photographs. So I'll look at either the computer or I'll print out some images of the landscape I'm going to be making. I like to mix sands and clays maybe that I find from the area. So this particular area, I collected this sand and it's kind of beige and white. I think it's sand mixed with some volcanic ash. For this painting over here, I collected this sand. It's super red. It's beautiful. So I mix that in. Okay, so that's what I do. And so now I'm going to mix some green for some trees. Once I get a color I like, I will add my darks and lights to use the color in different values. Sometimes it gets weak, so I'll add some medium in there. So I like to have like this is an acrylic glazing gloss liquid. And so I like this color, and so what I'll do is I'll put some white on one end of my bucket and some brown on the other end, and that's where I'll like mix in my bucket. This painting goes with my grandfather. Every time you paint a piece, you kind of learn a little bit more about yourself and what you like and what you don't like, or what you kind of want to do and what you don't want to do. Okay, this is my next phase after the piece is dry. I go in with sandpaper. Depends on how rough the piece is. Sometimes I'll use a super rough paper, and sometimes I'll use smaller. For the most part, it's going to be the 60. I think this is a 60. This is a 60 grit. So what I do is I smooth out. This is my grandfather. I guess I've made him once before, and I was in my early 20s maybe, and of course I had to give it to my aunt, my oldest aunt. Her name was Dorothy, and so she has that piece. This isn't exactly casual dress. This is kind of fancy, but my grandpa really enjoyed looking fancy. Now that I have some of it smoothed out, I'll shake off excess dust with a damp sponge. I always use my sponge, and whenever you wet it, you have to really get the water out, or else it'll melt your clay. I like to use the X-Acto blade now when it's just a little damp. This is drawing a little deeper line just for emphasis. And then you just have a little bit cleaner line, and that's just one little spot. I gotta do the whole sculpture. Not only do I use a sponge, but I use a paintbrush as well. And I'll paint some water in these little crevices. Clean all this up. See, isn't that better? So I went back to the Institute of American Indian Arts for painting. And so my project I did was a collaboration between painting and the sculptures. And the subject matter was something dear to my heart. Like I was, I guess, obsessed with food. I was obsessed at the fact that it's just altered so much than it should be allowed, for one thing. But so I wanted to look back at native foods and the foods that we used to eat and we used to hunt and we used to gather. And so I did depictions of a man hunting rabbit. I did depictions, a depiction of a farmer, Hopi women grinding corn. I did a Navajo woman walking sheep. The Three Sisters. I did a social Iroquois dance. So these ladies are doing a social Iroquois dance and they're representing corn, beans, and squash. And then the saguaro cactus, harvesting saguaro cactus. So all these depictions accompanied a conversation about diabetes and how we've digressed so far away from the food that we originally ate. And it was very healing for myself because I was so obsessed and I was so freaked out about food. Once I finished the project and it was out, I was actually at ease a lot more than I was before. And so now I can actually go out to eat and I don't obsess as much as I used to. What I'm doing here is I'm basically putting base coats on this sculpture. And what eventually is going to happen is after I put this piece in the kiln, I'll go over the sculpture again with acrylic colors, hopefully to tie it together to the painting that the sculpture accompanies. What I'm using here is a white paint that I dig up in the Jemez Mountains. The black I use is an underglaze, and the red I use, I dig up by La Bajada Hill. And then there's others like grays, yellows. I like to dig up kind of just traveling. When I'm traveling, if I see something on the side of the road, I'll stop and see if it's a clay body. And if it would work for a clay body or a slip. And I'll just take a little bit. So I have a little accumulation of like a lot of little different colors. If I see mica, I'm like, oh my gosh, stop the car. I don't fire very high. The clay I use is a very low firing clay. The only downside to this clay is it's super fragile and it doesn't fire as high as a high firing ceramic or porcelain. When you see a pottery that's lasted a long time and well taken care of, it's always nice because that fragility to me adds a lot of character. Like something so fragile can be very strong and resilient. Clay right here has a lot of mica, so his pants are pretty shiny. So I brought this kiln from Jemez. It was sitting outside my studio for about a year. So I was really happy it worked. It turned on. Okay, so what I did was I put a little hole in his head right here, right in the back. I drilled it because I just wasn't confident enough that the ear holes and the nose holes were going to be enough, because sometimes that heat just rises up and it'll crack into the head if there's not enough escape. But he does have some holes in his ears and his nose. But I just wanted to put one more just in case, because I really like this guy. Does he fit all the way? No, you don't. You're too tall. So that gives us just the few more inches we needed, because last time, of course, it didn't fit. Let me grab his cane, so he can be fired with his cane. We'll let you hold on to it, Gramps. Okay. I know this looks crazy, but it's fine. And then you just turn it on and let it go. That's it. This project, it's bigger than what I've done so far. It's bigger than, what I can accomplish in the next couple of years. I really want the project to be a global project where I do these portraits of indigenous people and paint their native name behind them, or their indigenous name, because there's so many indigenous people who are losing their lands and losing their right to their cultural areas. There's so many aspects of the importance of indigenous land. If there's more culturally respected lands, there'll be less harm, and it's just heartbreaking that so many indigenous people are fighting for their lands and fighting against big industries. Maybe once I do my global indigenous project, I'll calm down about the earth, and because maybe my voice is out there. I feel like I need my voice. I need to speak my opinion and my voice, but I need to do it in an aesthetically pleasing way. With this project here at the SAR, I need to express how important native lands are. And it's not just so we have more room to roam. It's actually a respect for the earth. It's a respect so embedded in us that it is a part of us. This is my SAR coyote. I started making this piece and I made some boots, and I honestly didn't know what I was going to make. And so my son, of course I'm here with my 3 children, so my son is walking back from the billiards building and he comes in the house and he's like, "Mom, there's a bunch of coyotes at your studio." I was like, "Really?" So I decided I'm going to make a SAR coyote. I need to get into the vaults, one of the squash blossoms, and probably a Plains Indian vest for him, and then I'm also going to replicate one of the pots. This is a contemporary coyote because he has a bulge in his pocket, and that is an iPhone. This is a collaboration I'm doing with Kelly Church. She does the black ash baskets. So this is her basket here, and I'll be finishing the lady. So this is all stuff basically I do for the market. I have my Kashari clown friendship pot. So all the little clowns on top. This is how I make a living when I'm not working on big projects. The project I'm working here at the SAR, I want to go further. I definitely want to start, of course, with my own family because that is important to me, and then start working with friends in different Native cultures and getting their input on how they feel about the land around them, and it contributes to my ideas, and it makes them bigger. And I love making my art bigger than me. I like including people in what I do. Working on this project about indigenous lands, it makes me feel like I have to work harder and I have to do better because I need to express not only my opinions and my feelings about indigenous land, I need to express other people's feelings and other people's ideas about their indigenous land and how important it is to them.